Jovan Belcher commits this hideous act. He kills the mother, his girlfriend, the mother of his 2-month-old child, Zoe, kills Kasandra Perkins, murders her, and then goes to the Chiefs training facility. This is on Saturday, as everybody knows, and kills himself, shoots himself in the head as police arrive, essentially in front of Scott Pioli, the general manager, and Romeo Crennel, the head coach, and I think some other Chiefs personnel as well. But those two guys were trying to talk him down, and he thanked them, and then he killed himself. So there was an immediate discussion of whether the Chiefs should play that game against the Panthers on Sunday. The event happened on Saturday. And I had some I believe fascinating thoughts on that subject, but so did others. JR, you thought, as I think a lot of people did, that they should not play that game, right?
Yeah, well, when I saw a lot of the anger at them playing the game, but I was thinking that makes sense, but I wasn't upset that they did. But the fact that you have someone witness, the suicide, as we saw, Romeo Crennel and Pioli was also
Scott
there.
Pioli, the GM.
They were both there and saw it happen. I mean, I'm not saying from the perspective of, okay, the players can't concentrate, which maybe they can't, but just the fact that this is the story it is, and now the culture of our league has to be, best way to move on from this is just play and act like nothing happened, because I think has a bad. It
was
example.
Weird. There's no question it was weird. Scott Pioli, his agent, said he's imagine your worst day and then multiply it by 5. He's like, when asked how, he wasn't overstating it. Obviously, we know Scott Pioli wasn't a victim in this case, as much, obviously, like Kasandra Perkins. But his agent was asked, how is he doing? And he was like, he's doing horribly, which I think was a fair answer. But Romeo Crennel was like, yeah, I'm fine, which I thought, I can't imagine how anybody's fine. But I didn't. Thankfully, it didn't happen to me, and you get to handle it however you perceive. The players wanted to play. So I thought it was fine that they played. Mainly, what I don't understand, I think it's weird that we get into these discussions about whether the game should be played. That happened within an hour. We were talking about should they play the game. Bill Simmons, who I respect enormously at ESPN, was saying they need to cancel the game. It's crazy. Jason Whitlock, the writer in Kansas City, he said that they probably shouldn't play the game. And I get it. I respect the hell out of both those guys, especially with Jason Whitlock then wrote yesterday, which we can get to later. Who cares whether they play the game? This notion, and I heard Rome this morning saying, how would the parents feel of the poor Kasandra Perkins, and their lives are ruined, devastated by the death of their daughter, obviously, and this notion that, this terrible thing happened, but the team thinks because we're football players and football coaches that we're going to go ahead and play. It's what we do. How would that make you feel? I don't know, but I don't think they're going to feel any better on Monday. It's a silly thing to be talking about. Okay, they play on Sunday, so they play on Sunday. There's nothing that can be done to rectify the horribleness of this. They should reach out to her family.
Right. Yeah, I don't think it would rectify, but I just think it shouldn't be seen as such a normal thing now. Okay, after September 11th, they canceled. Of course they canceled games, or rescheduled them so and do them later. When there's a hurricane, you absolutely can't play the game, right? Because you can't do it. So
it's a fair point.
When things like that happen, it's not like it's impossible to make up the game. As Ricky said earlier, maybe they don't want to make up this game,
right?
But because of the two teams that are playing. But in the meantime, just because the feeling that it ends up giving people, because we now have gone to say, I can watch a football game. I don't want to have my mind think of anything else. I want it to be blank and think of football. So, but when it happens so close to football, because it's one of the players and the coaches that are affected by it, I think we need to at least acknowledge that human life was lost. And it's not nothing.
You've made the best point anybody's made. I got it. I see it. I see it either way. I totally see it either way. I now kind of lean toward maybe but I'm still going to fall back on my position. That's a crazy thing to be talking about.
Yeah, and the fact that they played it, I'm not angry that they played it.
Yeah, I got you. I agree with you. That's a totally good point. The Chiefs have had Belcher's, locker sort of as an homage to him. With his jersey and his helmet, just as it would have been before the game if he'd been playing in it. And Jason Whitlock pointed out, here's another reason why we shouldn't have played the game, because the Chiefs had this thing in the locker, which I guess, the players get to do, but the guy committed this horrible, senseless, cruel act of violence. And the Chiefs made the right decision as an organization, obviously not to honor him in any way before the game. Callers on Talk Radio were saying if he had been a regular guy who didn't have a high-profile job as an NFL athlete, we would just think of him as a murderer and a coward. I didn't agree with the coward point of view because the idea was he couldn't face the family after what he did, but that speaks to him at least. There's no at least. He was obviously, it would appear, devastated by what he'd done, but there's no excuse for it. However, yeah, they're right. We wouldn't think of him and we wouldn't even be discussing the interesting things that might have motivated him, which we may never know. But the fact is that it is a high-profile case, gives us a reason to look into this kind of thing, and maybe we can learn something from it, and maybe we can understand it better. And obviously the question, the Chiefs say initially, no, he had not had any history of concussions, so maybe that's out, but it's certainly, obviously in this new era that we're entering in where we think about that, maybe it's the kind of thing that's worth thinking about, because everything in the backstory of this guy was exactly what you'd want, exactly the kind of athlete you want, exactly the kind of player you want. Worked himself up from a small school, undersized, plays in the NFL. Coaches love him, everybody loves him, work ethic is great, everything is perfect. And then this thing that apparently is so incongruous happens. Of course, it's one day afterwards. We may well learn in the weeks ahead many other facts which shed light on it that maybe this initial storyline isn't exactly right.